Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you sparing time for us and joining this demo session of the EDI Explicit Direct Instructions workshop. This demo session is conducted by DataWORKS Educational Research based out of California, USA. And we have Mr. John Hollingsworth and Mr. Joel Soto joining in straight from California today with us.
So I'm going to talk about one. It's well-designed lesson. That's what you put up on the board, what the students look at, what you teach from, and then it's the delivery. Do you do checking for understanding questions, help students pronounce new words, corrective feedback when students are struggling or they need help? So let me just give you a couple of hints right now. We're going to look at lesson design, concept development. If you're taking notes, put this down right now. Concept development, always have a written definition. I see teachers just kind of giving a discussion off the top of their head. They're just kind of talking about it. The students need a written definition they can refer to. They could highlight key ideas in it. And then you need to have examples of what that definition means. I'm going to show a very couple of simple ones right now. And let's go back here. And we're going to, this is edusary.com. We have almost 3,000 lessons online. I've picked 16 to look at today. But if we're going to do a lesson on nouns, I know this is a very easy lesson, but the concept still applies. I'm going to go through, we have an objective, connector, here it is right here. I said we should have a written definition. A noun is a word that names a person, a place, or a thing. This needs to be on the board for students to read. They could even be highlighting person, place, or thing on their copy. Now I said written definition, labeled examples. So now you need some examples, person, place, or thing. And these are some examples of a person, place, or thing. Now, of course, we don't teach it like this. I'm describing it right now, but in a few minutes, we'll show you more like how to teach it with more interaction. So we have examples of persons, example of places, and examples of things. And we have things for the students to read and look at. Okay, let's look at one more. So if we're doing a higher grade level, high school, okay, we're teaching euphemism and oxymoron. So right away we need a written definition. A euphemism is a mild or vague expression used in place of an expression that is offensive or harsh. It's used to soften, be polite, or hide. So now I have a written definition, okay? Now I need to give some examples. So students, here's an example. Let's all read it together. Passed away. This is a euphemism. We're trying to what? Soften the idea of death. We don't say someone died. We say what? They passed away. They passed away. All right, here's another one. Let's read it together. Senior citizen. We're going to be what? Polite about a person. We're not going to call them an old person. We're going to call them a senior citizen. So this is an example. We're trying to be polite. Okay, the third one. Let's read it together. Military air support. We're trying to hide something. I don't want to say bombing or killing, and I'm going to say we're providing military air support. So just time out for a second. If you look at this, do you see the words that are in your definition? Those are the words you're bringing out right here, soften, polite, or hide. We're trying to bring out those ideas. So the written definition, and these are the examples of generally the three types and examples to read. Oxymoron, written definition, labeled example. We even use color-coded, red for euphemism and green for oxymoron, but you can highlight or underline or something. So this is what I mean by we should provide what? Written definitions and labeled examples. Now this could be something else like two-step linear equation, onomatopoeia, theme, alliteration, binomial equation, quadratic formula. So anything you got, definition and written definition and labeled examples. Okay, let me give you one big idea. We said written definitions. Now the next one, when you start problems, the skill development guided practice. Skill development means you as a teacher work one first. Don't ask the students to work until you've worked one first. then have the students do one. And sometimes we would see the teacher skip working the problem and ask the students to work the problem too soon. Too soon. So make sure, teachers, all of you do one first, and then you should be modeling your thinking aloud how you did it, and then have the students be able to explain how you solved the problem. Not what the answer was, but how you solved it. And if we look back in our uh, lesson here on figurative language, you can see we have examples. So we're going to go in here now, one for the teacher to do, and then the students. And you can just kind of go back and forth, teacher, student. And as you progress through the lesson, it's called the slow release. You don't need to do every other problem anymore. The students are getting more proficient. But that initial learning, remember, this is new learning for the students. You already know all of this as the teacher, but it's new information for the students. One big thing we're going to talk about today, or one thing that's important for effective instruction, is picking non-volunteers. Then you can monitor if the whole class is learning. If you call the 3 students in the front row with their hands up, those are the ones who probably already know. They're the fastest learners, but you've misjudged the learning of the classroom. You won't realize when you need to reteach or provide some feedback or something. So let's always pick non-volunteers. All right, the next one we're going to look at today, some of these, the student engagement. You need to have students read with you, track with you, gesture, pair share, talk with their partner so they can interact. Attention signal, this is just classroom management, something to pull the students back. And whiteboard so you can see everybody at once, all the answers. And then we want the students to practice their new language. The perimeter of the polygon is. The character trait in the dramatic monologue is. So complete sentences is one we're going to work on. All right, the last one, I'm just going to cover one today. Effective feedback. When you call a student and they can't answer your question, you need some strategies. Here's a very simple one. I'll come back to you. This is a great strategy. A student doesn't know. You call some other students. That gives them a little think time, allows them to hear other students. So there's other strategies, but this is one great strategy. It's one great strategy. All right, so let's move on a little bit, and I want to talk about today's training. This is experiential training. We will use the EDI strategies as part of the training. So I want to do those today so you can see them in action and experience the strategies from a student perspective, and then we can practice the strategies. So look, I just read this page. You're just listening. I'm talking too much. One of our strategies is track with me, read with me. When you have a very important part, you say, everybody look up here. I'm going to read first, and then you're going to read with me. Okay, so let's say we've got young students. I'm going to read first, and you're going to read after me. So everybody follow my eyes, your eyes up here, and then we'll read together. We will use EDI strategies as part of the training. Okay, class, we're all going to read. Go. We will use EDI strategies as part of the training. Now, I know if the audience is thinking, wow, I'm actually more engaged. I had to do something. I'm getting another repetition to remember it. Now, for older students, we don't need to pre-read everything. For the younger students who are just learning to read, we do need to do that important pre-reading. Okay, so this is one of our strategies. Can instruction be more effective and efficient? Yeah, we just did one. Instead of me just going down the page and reading it, I have you join in. Then I elaborate and explain further on what they are. Okay, let's look at the second one. How can we be more effective and efficient? So let's read number 2. Now we're all going to read together. Ready? Go. Everyone must have a whiteboard or paper to write and show answers. Now, I mean everybody in the classroom needs to have a whiteboard, and for today's training, everybody needs to. Now, I want all of you to have a piece of paper. But look at the power of the whiteboard. The students are exchanging their answers first. They're practicing. Notice every student is practicing. They've all got an answer to practice with. And then look when the boards go up. Remember I said instruction can be more effective and more efficient. Your classroom instruction, students will learn more. You'll be a better teacher when you can see all the answers at once and make some type of instructional decision. Do I need to reteach? Can I speed up? Can I slow down? I think when you see the whiteboards, you can even look out here and sometimes you can identify mistakes. You can uncover errors. Joel, I was teaching one time, the question was 4 squared, which is 16. 4 squared. Many kids had 8. 4 times 2 is 8. I saw that on the whiteboard right away. I said, stop. Everyone check exponents. That 2 means we multiply 2 times, 4 times 4. Check your whiteboard, check your partner. I'll give everybody a second. And right away I saw it and I kind of preempted it and tried to do it. So that's one of the powers of seeing the whiteboards. Okay, now another thing we're going to do, we will call on non-volunteers.
Confucius figured this stuff out a couple thousand years ago. The person who's talking is the person who's learning. The person who's doing is the person who's learning, isn't it? So this is one of those ways to encourage everyone in my class.
Okay, so I said, can we make instruction more effective and more efficient? Now, I want you just to look at this. This girl has come to the board and she's filling out my name is. Now, it doesn't matter what language we're teaching in. These strategies work for any language and they've worked all over the world. We've done them in China, in Australia, Spanish-speaking countries in Central America. The techniques are universal. Okay, so rather than have one student come up and write her name, look what she's writing, her name. She knows how to write her name already. What I'd like to see is writing the whole sentence, and that sentence might be the perimeter of the polygon, the character trait. You see what I'm saying? The stuff in the sentence is actually more important. So how could we make classroom questions more efficient and effective and not have one person answer, but everybody do it? So we're going to do it with our whiteboards. So right now, everybody should have your piece of paper ready. Okay, I've got my whiteboard ready. All right, now, the best way is to have the question up there, and then we're all going to read it. We're going to use our reading strategies. This is a very simple one, but if it were a more complicated one, you know, it'd be much more effective for the reading. But for just right now, what is your name? Now, when we did the choral read, everybody's practicing English and they're talking, okay? Now, you're going to write it on your whiteboard. So right now, write your name on your whiteboard, and you're going to have to, or piece of paper. So we've done the first part. We read together, and then we, use our whiteboards. Okay, now, pair share is one of our strategies. So when you pair share, you're going to say, we're going to answer in a complete sentence, my name is blank. Okay, so everyone, I know you don't have a partner right now, but in the classroom we would have partners. So I want you to turn sideways and pretend you're pair sharing. My name is, and read your answer from the board. All right, now let's do the next part. I have a command. I'm going to use boards up. Okay, class, boards up. When I give the command, everybody should be up. And then we're going to call non-volunteers. We want to make sure everybody's participating. Okay. So now this looked very easy because we did this, my name is. But let's look down here. These are the actual questions. Who is the character in the passage? I want the student to say the character in the passage is. Now the answer might be Cinderella or some very simple name. The name is not what's important. It's can you say character and passage? Look at the next one. Identify the denominator in the fraction. The denominator in the fraction is 6 or 8. The answer 8 is not academic. The whole part, the denominator in the fraction is. What is the perimeter of the polygon? The perimeter of the polygon is. When the students just say the answer, they say 12 centimeters. No, I want the whole sentence. The perimeter of the polygon is 12 centimeters. Now, I want you to think about listening and speaking, the amount of language, the level, the register, the high level of this. Daraj, you know, I looked at some of those release questions from the board exams. They use big words. We can't be using words like the story, my answer is. That they're big words, so we have to be practicing using, big words is kind of the wrong word, but the proper register, high level vocabulary we need to be practicing. And this is one person one place where students really get to practice is in the sentence frames. We need to be brain compatible. I want to spend 1 minute on brain research. I mean, all this fits in the way the brain works. Now, you're in India, I'm in the United States, I've been in Australia. The brain works the same every place. Probably for thousands of years, it's hardly changed at all. So let's look at a little bit of brain research. The brain takes in 40,000 pieces of information per minute. Most is not retained. So the brain does not really remember everything. It's an overload. It's just too much. Now here's the next big idea. The brain cannot distinguish between what to remember. Should the brain remember the teacher talking in the class, or a conversation in the classroom? The brain cannot distinguish what's important to remember. However, the brain will retain what's rehearsed and applied and used. So something you start doing over and over, like driving a car or driving a motorcycle, as you do it, it becomes very easy, very automatic. You don't even need to think about doing it. So let's think about this for a second. You need some exposures, 24 exposures to transfer to long-term permanent memory. And that's what we need is permanent memory so you can use it later for an exam or something. So here's the teacher talking out here. Sensory memory is just you're hearing it and it's usually kind of forgotten. Your working memory is your consciousness and it will retain there longer, especially if you start doing something or thinking about it. But eventually, as we start using it more and more and thinking about it, doing higher order thinking, right here, higher order thinking, we get it into long-term memory. Then we can what? Retrieve it later. All right, so let's do one now. We're all going to read the first two words. Ready? Read. Choral reading. We just did choral reading, okay? That gave you a repetition. You were actually doing it. Now, if I do the pre-read, now watch, I'll pre-read and we'll read together. Pair shares. Let's all say it. Pair shares. Okay, I read it, you read it. We got two more. And the pair shares actually count twice, right? I tell it to my partner tells it back to me. I'm telling you, these are important cognitive strategies to help students learn. The pair share is not just for the fun of it, it's helping students interact and practice the information. All right, let's read the next strategy to get more interactions. Ready? Answering questions. When I call 3 people, we heard the answer 3 more times. The whole class hears it, not just the person repeating it, answering the question. And then sometimes as a teacher, I like to elaborate or amplify what students said. So if I call 3 students and I amplify that 6 more repetitions. And whiteboards. Okay, so I have my checking for understanding question on this page. Okay, let me get my slide up right here. So I said, these are some ways we could provide interactions. So I'm going to let you pick anything off of here you might not have thought before, but pick 1 or 2 off of this. And let's just read the question together. How will you provide interactions in your classroom? And I've given 5 methods right here to get more, and I'll get more interaction in the classroom. Now, when you answer, you're going to say, I will provide interactions by blank. Okay? All right, so this time we're going to get out a piece of paper and write the whole sentence. I will provide interactions by, and then you're going to put in a couple of answers here. If we were in the classroom, I would tell you turn to your partner, explain how you will provide interactions in your classroom. And you want both partners to talk. So the left partner talk, now I want the right partner to talk. So really the pair share is kind of twice. So we're going to talk about some of the strategies right now. And this pronounce with me is one of them. Usually we just say a word, engagement. But there's a couple strategies we can do. If all of you try this, it's pretty amazing. I almost couldn't believe it the first time I did it. It's called backward syllabication. So instead of saying this great big word like this, and then, kind of fading out at the end, we start from the end and we start pronouncing, and then we add a little more, add a little more, and add a little more. So I'm going to say the first and you'll repeat after me. So students, this is a new word we're going to do today. This first part is said like you. I know it says EU, but it's like you. Can we all say that? You. Now the PH is an F like Philip or Philippines or pharmacy. So it's euphemisms, like an F. Euphemisms. Now let's say it a little bit faster. Euphemisms. Okay, turn to your partner and say euphemisms twice. Euphemisms. Euphemisms. Okay? Now, if you were the teacher, here would be the next word, Oxymorons, two parts. Oxymorons. Let's all say it. Oxymorons. One more time. Oxymorons. Okay. Say oxymorons to your neighbor twice. Oxymorons, oxymorons. Okay, so this is the basic listening and speaking of pronouncing at the word level. We're not doing sentences. Now, you may find other words in the lessons that you want to do. These may not be the only words, but I think here's one. Disgustingly might be a word, maybe what? Offensive. Okay, vague could be one. So you can pick words anywhere in a lesson and pick those words ahead of time and say them right in front of before you're going to use it. So this was our first big strategy, what? Pronouncing words. Okay, the second strategy is the tracked reading. You've seen me do this several times today. Generally, we read first and the students read. Sometimes we only need to read one difficult word. Students, this is engagement. Now let's read the whole thing. Student engagement. Track with me, read with me.
I'm going to read it first. Today, we will compute the difference of whole numbers. Let's read together. Track with me. 1, 2, 3, read. Today, we will compute the difference of whole numbers.
We will describe the cause and effect structure of text. Let's read it. We will describe the cause and effect structure of text. Okay, so boy, when I did the lesson in Dubai, it was like, wow, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this over and over. So if you're supporting English, you're not teaching English, but you're using English in every lesson or the language you're using. We're practicing reading over and over. Everybody wants their students to be more engaged. The secret of student engagement is created when the teacher asks the students to do something. I ask them to put their hands up. I ask them to read. I ask them to show me the whiteboard. I ask them to answer a question. They get engaged by me asking them to do a lot of stuff. Okay, Joel, I think that's probably it for right now.
So why choose explicit direct instruction for yourself, your school, your students, and ultimately my gentle teachers who are here, is this something that is valuable to you in your future career? Let's keep advancing the slide there, Mr. John. Great. Well, first and foremost, no matter what we have for technology or whiteboard, whatever physical manifestations you have in your hand, it doesn't matter. It's always the teacher that's teaching. And what we talk about is if we want to improve student learning just a little bit, we just optimize our teachers' lesson deliveries. We optimize our instructional practices. So EDI is a tier 1, which means it's that foundation. Once you have this and it becomes a wonderful habit, and it's kind of hard learning new habits, isn't it? But once we have it as your minimum habit, this is what I always default to, then we get to have the wonderful group learning. Then we get to go into discovery. Then we get to do other things. And don't forget, every student has different background knowledge, don't they? Everyone has different background knowledge. So we're going to have to establish that everyone comes from the same place. And how do we do that? Well, you do that. You teach something, and we're always going to ask questions. So it's called skill and will, and that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have our skill. Right here it says EDI has proven to be the most effective instructional model for learning new material. Feel free to Google us. Feel free to look at explicit direct instruction. If you're taking notes, write down the word John Hattie. Write that down right now, John Hattie. That way you can take your own time and do your own research. I'm telling you, though, this is one of the most best ways to teach students effectively, efficiently, and you're going to feel good about this. Quite frankly, we are processing with our brain any type of information, and we're going to grab that information and turn it into long-term. We're going to give you the skills to do that very quickly. Everything that we present to you during our training, you're able to use in your classroom the next day. It doesn't matter what you teach. Kinder to calculus, sports, second language, it doesn't matter. We're able to use explicit direct instruction. Ultimately, our overall goal is to improve student performance on exams. But we're going to do that in a wonderful way that your students will actually like, and you would like yourself doing this with your students. If you do decide to go with DataWORKS and explicit direct instruction, one of the exciting things is we send you a press release. You have the keys to the kingdom. You get the additional resources. And it's really nice when everybody uses the same instructional processes. Everyone always says, "Oh, you have great kids. You're very lucky." No, I used explicit, direct instruction to make my kids great. They're doing well because I'm using a systematic way of instruction that every brain on the planet is able to respond to and be able to use. And we're not going to wait for exams anymore. We're going to be very aggressive. We're going to be doing checking for understanding randomly. We're going to be using our whiteboards to make sure they're learning. And that way, when the exams do happen, we're not surprised. We'll know how well they're going to do. Here's what you're going to get. If you do decide to go with explicit direct instruction training, we have some wonderful resources for you. But more importantly, you get to participate in a wonderful workshop. Usually we have someone like Mr. John himself doing the workshop, which is absolutely fantastic. You're going to participate in it. You're going to have your little scratch paper. It is actually a fun workshop. The hours go by like that. It's very quick. It feels painless. And you're going to learn that if I'm learning this way, my students will learn this way. So we don't mess around and we have a good time at the same time, if that makes sense. We dive into brain research. We spend a lot more time in there so that way, we gave you snapshots of everything, but only there's so much more that goes into this. There's so much nuances that need to be talked about. We'll talk about effective instruction. What does that really look like? We'll give you multiple examples at multiple levels. During the presentation, you'll say, Mr. John, I'm a rank 5 teacher. Give me an example of, and then we'll give you real live examples that you can use in your classroom tomorrow. Our student engagement norms, every student participate, every student's learning. And then we dive into lesson design, EDI lesson design. Teachers, we don't talk for 45 minutes. Every minute we have a purpose. We have a goal that we're going to be able to achieve. And it gets even crazier because our brain is designed for that 45 or 35-minute session. But there's different parts where the brain ebbs low or ebbs high, and that's part of the training. We can't even talk about it now because it's just the beginning. You'll get access to Edusary. So we don't leave you alone. Just because you did this workshop, great. No, we're going to stay with you. And the way we stay with you is we provide you with this wonderful resource to go and grab upon. So you don't have to buy anything after this. This is just your resource, and you get it for a whole year. Once you have this resource, you get to pull from it as much as you want and as often as you want. If you're doing remediation support, if you're classroom support, if you're helping other teachers out, you pull this up on your screen, on your computer, on your phone, and it works. The workshop is a 6-hour bite. We usually divide it up into 2 beautiful days. Now, here's the best part about this. Once you're done successfully, you get an EDI certification, explicit direct instruction certification level 1. And for schools, for example, schools in Australia, they want teachers who are EDI trained. Now, India, full disclosure, we're rolling it out there, and it's the beginning of this. So you'll be one of the first teachers to start doing explicit direct instruction. But this is part 1 of our 3-year plan to begin explicit direct instruction as India. As India moves to become a superpower, as microchip factories get constructed there, it's pretty clear India is about to become one of the world leaders in technology. It's happening, and we're going to need some very clever students, some very clever adults to support that. And I thought that's exciting.